Well, I want to welcome everybody back to session number 4. And hopefully you've been really taking a hold of those better but believable thoughts and changing those negative thoughts and starting to break some of those bad habits. And again, some of you have been doing this for years and years and years. It takes time, and that's okay. If it took you 30 years to get as good at being negative as you are today, if it takes you 3 weeks or 3 months to reverse that, totally good. We're trying to keep you from going and having these same negative thoughts for the next 30 years of your life. So if you're able to, I think I mentioned about bringing a picture of yourself somewhere between the ages of like 4 and 9. So if you have that, maybe put that in front of you. And so in a group setting, what we tend to do with this, and it's one of the most powerful things that we do, is at the beginning, they text me the pictures, and then I'll put them up on the TV screen so everybody can see and try and guess who's who, and we have a little bit of fun with that. But then we get into the negative thoughts that they've written down throughout the week and the messages that they're telling themselves. So, I'm not good enough, or I'm stupid, or I'm ugly, whatever that thought may be. And then I'll put those pictures back up one at a time. And we'll go around and I'll say, like, to whoever's kid picture is on the screen, like, I want you to tell that little girl that she's not worthy. Or you tell that little girl that she can't be a good mother. Tell that little girl that she's ugly. Tell that little boy that his life really doesn't mean anything. And, usually there's a lot of tears and a lot of things, but the reality exists that, that little boy or that little girl on the TV screen is that person. And so the picture that you have with you, if you remember to bring one, like, that's you. So when you have these thoughts that you're not worthy, or you're dumb, or whatever it may be, you're not just telling them to yourself. You're saying to that little boy or that little girl, and that little boy, that little girl doesn't deserve those negative thoughts that you're saying, and you don't deserve the negative thoughts that you're saying. But if you can't believe that you don't deserve it, I'm sure you can look at that picture that you have in front of you, and just try and tell that little boy or that little girl that they're ugly, they're stupid, and you'll see and realize they don't deserve to hear that. But when you say those to yourself, you're saying it to that person on that picture. So just let this be a reminder. I changed the program a little bit, but normally in the past with these groups, the participants had like a certain verse that we'll get into, I think in week 6, from the Bible that kind of becomes like a motto for them. And so I would go to Walmart and I would put their kid picture on one side, and then kind of like this life verse that they picked out of who God sees them to be on the other. And they would put them on their nightstand. Some got it framed, and it was always a reminder that, that they're worth it, and these negative thoughts need to stop, and really just use that as a reminder. Set that little kid picture close by to you, and remember the thoughts that you say to yourself, you're saying to them, and let's put an end to it right here and right now. All right. So with that, I'm excited about this new skill. So this is something like when your anxiety is kind of shooting through the roof. So your anxiety is a 9.5 out of 10. Maybe it's an 11 out of 10, whatever it may be. Like, sometimes the deep breathing and the mindfulness and the other things we've learned can make it feel worse. So I'm going to introduce a skill that will help you when anxiety is off the charts. And I'll go back, the recordings from these I've been using with clients I've been working with just as reminders. So rather than redoing them all over again, I just keep sharing a video I made about a year ago on each of these skills. So I'll share this one with you now. Hey, welcome back from one of our most important lessons with the BBBs, and hope you're nailing those better but believable thoughts. Those are certainly something that will just change your whole outlook and impact your life in amazing ways. So today we're going to do a technique. It's called the Emotional Freedom Technique, or EFT for short. And this is the one that when your anxiety gets above the 5, that this is one that will bring it down. So it works the opposite of some of the others. The breathing, a lot of the techniques will do, helps you when you're 5 or below, to keep it low, to keep you calm, to keep you in a good place. This is one of the ones when it's higher, it's going to help you get it down to where then you can use the deep breathing and other techniques to kind of get you low. All right. On the other hand, this is one of the ones that if you're at a 3 and you try this, it's probably going to annoy you and make you more upset and anxious. So this one works great when your anxiety or depression is really high and you need to get it down, and then use the other techniques to keep it low and to keep you in a good place. All right, so the emotional freedom technique, it's based on pressure points in your body that can, release negative emotions. So I'll show you the pressure points first, and then there's kind of like we just did a better but believable thoughts, but good affirmative thoughts that go along with it. All right, so you use 2 fingers, first finger and middle finger, and there's different points on your body that you're going to tap on. So the first one is going to be, if you take your pinky, go right down, right where your wrist and hand would come together, there's going to be a spot right there that you're going to tap on. The second one is going to be on the back of your head. So if you imagine somebody with a bald spot, it would be right where that bald spot is. The next one is going to be just above your eyebrow. Doesn't matter if you do the right side or the left side, but if you go right to the top of your nose, right where your eyebrow is, just above that, that's going to be the next spot. The next one's going to be just up to the side of your eye, right around where your temple is. Then you're going to go just underneath your eyes. And it's going to go between your nose and your lip. And it's going to go down to your chin. And then it's going to go back to your hand, go down your thumb. This time, not the pinky side, but the thumb side, right where your wrist and hand come together. All right. So those are the techniques. What you're going to do, though, is also say something affirming, just like the better but believable thoughts. So I do, like, unapologetically have a personal relationship with Christ, and I love to bring God and Him into all that I do. So for me, it's kind of Christian based, but if we can go other phrases or things at the end that may help you, that could replace that. So let's say I'm feeling anxious. All right, so my phrase might be, even though I feel anxious, I know God is right beside me. All right, so I'm going to say that 3 times, the full phrase at the beginning and the end, and then the second part of the phrase throughout the rest. So for 3 times, I'll say, even though I feel anxious, I know God is right beside me. I'll do that 3 times. And then as I go with the other points, this is going to be, God is right beside me. God is right beside me. That affirmative thought, and then I'll say it again when I get to the very end, saying the full phrase. So this is what it would look like. And again, you want to, it's hard to say how hard to tap. Do it so it's not annoying, but hard enough that you feel it, I guess. Don't bruise yourself, but you really just try it different, I guess, strengths. Try it a little harder, try it a little softer, figure out what works for you. So here's what it would look like. Even though I feel anxious, I know God is with me. Even though I feel anxious, I know God is with me. Even though I feel anxious, I know God is with me. 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 Even though I feel anxious, I know God is with me. Even though I feel anxious, I know God is with me. Even though I feel anxious, I know God is with me. Even though I feel anxious, I know God is with me.
And so as I do that on other people at times, sometimes if their energy's way up, and again, you're using this when your anxiety is pretty high, depression's pretty high. So sometimes you need to slow it down, and I'll purposely, like, they're repeating after me when I'm doing it with them, and so I'll do a slower phrase. So if I see them trying to rush through, or their energy level's so high, I'll do everything I can with my voice to slow them down. So I may be, even though I feel anxious, I know God is with me. And so don't be afraid to slow that down, find out what works with the speed, with the power. And like I said, when you get super anxious, super upset, everybody I've done this to in groups, I'll demonstrate it. Somebody will bring up a memory or something that will get them worked up, or somebody who's been having a really bad day. Like 100% of the time, it's been able to bring them under a 5, and then using the breathing and other things that we'll be learning to kind of get them to a really good place. All right, so keep trying that, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, so hopefully you'll find that helpful, especially when your anxiety is sky high and off the charts. I know part of the basis behind it, people ask, why those certain points. So my understanding, if you took a scan of your body, those are the points that would shine more red because there's increased blood flow to those areas. And, beyond the science, I've used it with people who have gotten horrible news or their anxieties totally off the charts. And I can say it's worked 100% of the time. So I don't know all the science behind it. I'm sure if you investigated it more, you could find exactly why those points and exactly what it's doing. But I just know, like, I've seen God work through that and help people so much. With kids, first of all, I'll say one of the most powerful points I believe is right here above the eyebrow. So if you're just going to do one point, I remember working with a girl one time that she was just totally convinced something bad was going to happen to her child, and her anxiety was off to the charts based on that. And then one time the child did get like wheezing and stuff and went to the hospital, and the baby had to be like taken by ambulance to like a bigger hospital. And she said like the tapping like saved her life. Well, like, just as far as like being able to make rational decisions and keep her anxiety down to be able to like talk with the doctors and the nurses and make the best decisions for her child, and not really go into a nervous breakdown. And a lot of times with kids, I teach them the magic mustache. So this is one of the points, and they can literally sit at their desk, make a little mustache, give a little push there, and just do the positive affirmations, and it works well for them as well. So hopefully give it a shot, see what you come up with, and hopefully it'll work for you. So what I want you to do next, on page 15, there's an expectation survey. So I'll let you go through that. You can pause the video, just put the numbers in, and then you're going to add up your total score. And so go ahead and pause now, and when you're done, hit the play. Okay, so hopefully you're done with the expectations survey. So this is the way the scores kind of come out. So if you did 0 to 25, that's too low. You just don't care about enough. And honestly, like a lot of times people in like a major depressive episode, they would just put 1 straight down through because they've just given up and they don't really care. So that would just be an indication of like depression is setting in, and actually need to boost up those scores and care a little bit more about some of these things. So 25 or 26 to 35 would be the ideal level. So that's kind of like a number to shoot for, and would be like a really healthy level. 36 to 45, I would say your expectations moderately contribute to how you're feeling. And then 46 plus, like, expectations are definitely playing a part in the way you feel. And the better but believable thought, and we always want those, is, hey, if your score was a 60, that's okay. We just pinpointed something that is going to make a difference, and we can know what you need to work on and what to focus on. So it's not, no matter what your score was, it's really not that bad of a thing. But wherever you were, let's see maybe how we can help this area of expectations. So number one, expectations can be a major cause for anxiety and depression. So too high expectations can set you up for disappointment. Perfection is a goal set by many people who suffer from anxiety and depression, and it can lead to negative thinking and giving up, causing more anxiety and depression. So hopefully you can see, like, expectations, if they get too high off the charts, they're definitely going to contribute into some negative feelings in the way that you feel as far as anxiety and depression are concerned. And I don't remember exactly where, somewhere in my education, I remember reading about a lady in class where she was kind of one of the neat freaks, and the house always had to be spotless, and her husband's boss was coming over for dinner. And so anyways, she cleaned the house, probably didn't even need clean, but made sure it was spotless. And then she remembered, she was like 5'3", and her husband's boss is like 6'6". And so she literally took a step ladder around the entire house and would stand on it because she wanted to see how the house looked from a tall person's perspective. And, I remember the class, we all got a laugh out of that. And, but, part of that's to say, like, that was definitely contributing to the way that she felt, and her expectations were off the chart. And, in reality, it's the better but believable thoughts. Present the evidence, see where it needs to change. What is the boss? Is the boss coming to evaluate his wife's cleaning ability? Or is he just coming for a good meal and good conversation? And so you're evaluating those and figuring it out. So as part of your homework this week, you're going to take your survey questions, and any that you put a 4 on, you're going to evaluate the effect, the evidence around it. You're going to create a better but believable thought. You can even do it with 3s if you want. So, for example, let's see. I hate conflict, number 9. I just randomly picked one. Let's say you put a 4, and you just can't stand conflict. Present the evidence. What if there was no conflict? And start to think back. What if there was no civil war? Or what if Rosa Parks refused to get up from the bus, or didn't refuse to get up from the bus? What if, like, people didn't stand for things that they truly believe in? And how many times out of conflict came beauty? And so just making that better but believable thought that, even though conflict's uncomfortable, it can make a long and lasting change. So, I'm not sure. That's a better thought than I hate conflict, but hopefully it's also believable. I'm not sure how you could really argue with that statement. So go down that list, present the evidence, create the better but believable thought to replace some of those negatives around some of those questions. All right, so there's a blank there. If you can think of one of your major expectations that contribute, write it down. And again, present the evidence and create that better but believable thought. All right, point number 2, we live in a fallen world. That doesn't matter, if you subscribe to, my belief in Jesus as the savior of the world and the God is creator of everything. Even if you don't agree with me there, and don't follow that, I'm sure you have no problem agreeing that the world is not perfect and the world isn't always fair. It's just easy to just look at the world and see that to be the case. So people will always let us down, and I believe God will help us through those challenges. But setting up life should be perfect and life should be fair is just not a reasonable expectation. And to just realize that we live in an imperfect and fallen world. All right, so number 3, this is an important one, that you choose how you react to these situations. So people process things in a different way. And, I think of, one of the people in a group, it was a gentleman that I had, and he talked about his family. And this was like later on towards the end of the group, something that when we talked about, major things that have changed and big eye openers that have come out of the group. And he had 7 siblings. And so there was 8 total in the family. And, by all regards, it was a horrible childhood. So he wasn't, he was abused at times, neglected at times. Mom wasn't all that bad, but, dad could have definitely used some help and some skills in his parenting. And, just a really, really bad experience that no kid should have to go through. And he said, when we get together for family reunions and things, there's 8 of us, and it's almost like there's 2 sides. So one side is a group of children from the family that would say, life hasn't treated us fair. Like, how could the world expect anything of us? We were never given a chance, and life pretty much stinks. On the other side, they say, oh, but we got to go to Uncle Jim's down at Virginia Beach every summer. That was kind of like the highlight of our year. And the friends that we had in the neighborhood, that we would ride bikes and play football and do all these fun things together. And, we all, like, mom and dad didn't have a lot to work with, and they did the best they could. And so they've kind of interpreted it a little bit different, even though, like, none of them would say, man, we had the greatest time as a kid and that was the best childhood ever, but they're interpreting it differently. And he came to the conclusion that now it's not like the 4 youngest and the 4 oldest where they were raised differently. It was kind of like the oldest, the second oldest, the third oldest, the fourth oldest. So they were an exact split. And this side, the very negative family, where life wasn't fair and they had no chance, he said there's huge issues of divorce. There's all kinds of drug use. There's been overdoses in that family. The types of jobs and careers that they have, like, even among the siblings, just jumping job to job and never really having a career or settling down into anything and losing jobs. It's just really not a good life in those 4 families. And the 4 that interpret it differently, they got educations, the kids got education, marriages are intact, just happier families, better off. And really, all 8 of them, same experience, but the way they interpret them made their lives drastically different. And so the good news is, if you're over on this side, there's still time to change. I don't care if you're 80 years old. Like, you can make the next 20, 25 years of your life way better than the first 80. Just by changing and using the better believable thoughts and having different expectation levels and following a lot of these things that you're learning. So some of those experiences, and again, like, you're not making them perfect. Nobody's going to go back and say, man, I'm so glad that I was abused, or I'm so glad this horrible trauma happened to me. But you can go back and say, it really stunk that this happened to me. But here's some things that I learned about myself and about life in ways that helped me, or potentially could help me, if I think about it just a little bit differently. All right, the next thing, you decide how things are going to affect you. One of my favorite stories, I had a mentor at one time where he was going to be a doctor. And so he's in medical school, and the family didn't have all that much while he's studying to become a doctor. And he had 3 kids, and they were like 12, 10, and 8, or somewhere in that range. And he had a friend that was going to let him use, like, their camper for a week. And so him and his wife decided, we're going to let the kids make all the decisions, teach them some responsibility, let them do what they want. So, they basically said, we can go to campgrounds for $10 a night. We're going to need groceries. I'm taking a whole week off work and school. And, so this week is going to be totally yours. And they had like $300-400 for the whole week. And, so they're trying to give them a little advice. The campground's going to be $10 a night. This is how much we'll need for food, and one of the rules was, when you kids run out of money, we're turning around and we're coming home. So they all get packed up, and the kids picked the first campground. And so they're driving to the campground, and the kids look out the window and they see like a little water park with horseback riding, arcade, go-karts, mini golf, all that sort of thing. And hey, we're in charge. We want you to stop there. So, my mentor and his wife, they stop there. And so the kids like have a good time. They ride the water slides. They go horseback riding. They play in the arcade. They play mini golf. They buy some souvenirs, and never even got to the campground. The kids spent every penny for the entire trip, the entire week, like within like the first 6 hours of the trip. So they turn around, they go home. I told you when we're out of money, we're done. And like, the dad, my mentor, was sulking the entire week. Like, what in the world? Like, why, they just ruined this. We could have had such a great week. And, so he's just stewing around the house, very upset, very angry. Well, the kids are just off playing, riding their bikes, having some summer fun, and like having a good time. And, he said now, like when they got into their 20s, he said like they look back and they'll talk about that being the best vacation that they ever had. And it always comes up. Hey, remember when we had like $300 so we could spend anywhere we want for an entire week, and we rode those go-karts and we rode those horses, and all three of them are like that was the best trip we ever had. Now, when my friend or mentor graduated and became a doctor, the kids went to Disney World, the kids went to Paris, and they went on all these extravagant big vacations, and yet they all come back to that trip where we went to that water park and blew all the money. That was the best vacation ever. And the dad just interpreted it in a completely different way. And like I said, you have the ability to choose. So you go on vacation and it rains the entire week. Like, you have the ability to choose, is that going to ruin your vacation, or are you going to make something out of it? All right, number 4, you need to eliminate the unimportant should. I like the second phrase down there. It's Dr. Aaron Beck, who created cognitive behavioral therapy. He always says, stop shoulding all over yourself, because we tell ourselves we should. So first of all, be compassionate about the important should. So yeah, there are things that we should do, right? So I would say I should pray. I should spend some time with my child. There's definitely the important ones that, if there's a day I have to work away or I'm traveling and I don't get to see my son, like, it's not that it's unimportant, but I got to have compassion. Like, sometimes things do come up, but I still need to make stuff, the important ones, a huge priority. Also, you need to be able to set things down. So let me see. I have a jar lid here, right? So if I hold this up for 10 seconds, then I set it down for a minute, then I pick it up for 10 seconds, then I set it down for a minute, and I do that all day long, like, it's probably not going to affect me or bother me all that much. Now, if I pick this thing up and I hold it out, and you want me to hold it out there for the entire day, by the end of the day, like, that's going to be killing me. And, this is what we need to do with some of those shoulds. So we pick it up, I should be further along in my career right now. You can sit there and stew on that. Or, my kids should have chosen a better vacation plan. My friend just held that out there all day, every day for a week, and it was exhausting. Where it's just put it down. I should be at a better place in my career right now. You know what? I'm going to focus on my family right now, and I'm going to spend some time with my kids. I'm going to do something that I enjoy. I'll come back and, when I'm at work, like, I'll examine my career, different choices, promotions that may be available, and those sort of things. And just being able to put those down, and allowing yourself to put them down, is a big thing. So there's some examples of shoulds. Now, the list could go on and on and on and on. So this is not at all an exhaustive list. But I want you to think of, what are some of the shoulds that you have for yourself? And you can, like, write those down. And again, you need to evaluate which ones are important and which ones are unimportant. Now here's the thing. People with anxiety, they tend to think they're all super important. So if you're feeling that way, talk to a spouse, talk to a friend, somebody who can look and, probably laugh at some of the ones on your list and saying, that's really, in the grand scheme of things, not all that important. So in the second one there, sometimes not only do we should on ourselves, sometimes we should all over other people as well. And we kind of put like our expectations that we have down on others. And, I think, one of the ladies I had in group said every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 was her and her kids' cleaning time. So everybody had to clean. And so those kids missed out on sleepovers. Sometimes the kids even miss like sports practices and things because Saturday morning was always set aside from 9 to 11 for their cleaning time. And, when we kind of examined that, like, why is this so important? And she said, well, like when I was growing up, like that was our household rule. And it was like, how did you like that rule? Well, I hated it. It was the worst. Like, and it was like an eye opener. Like, why did I bring that should into my life and put it on my kids when I hated it so much? And what's the difference? If we clean Saturday night or Friday night, instead, somebody has something important going on, that is not an expectation that needs to stick around. So one of the statements there you can see, sometimes I hear a lot, I just wish I could be who I used to be. And just keep in mind who you used to be and the thought patterns that you had and the feelings and behaviors is kind of what led to where you're at today. So we're not shooting to go back in the past and make you who you were 2 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever. We're shooting to make a whole brand new you that's going to have new thought patterns, new way of looking at life. And again, these shoulds, and expectations can be a big part in that. So again, for the homework, keep up with the exercise. Again, we're going to start talking about that next week. So it's not a big shock to your system when we get there. So keep exercising. Then again, in the survey, you're taking your higher 4s and 3s and creating a better but believable thought for those. Also, if there's somebody you need to ask forgiveness for putting shoulds on them, so expectations that you had for yourself, you've thrown on your kids, you've thrown on a spouse, coworkers, those sort of things, just go to them and say, you know what, I've been expecting this out of you, and it's really not that important, or it's really not that reasonable, and I just want you to forgive me. So continue monitoring negative thinking and using replacement thoughts, and keep up with all those skills. And then also ask someone who says that they love you to give you 3 reasons why they love you. So just staying on that positive note, and keep up, waking up every day with those 10 positive thoughts. And also I heard the phrase having an attitude of gratitude and being able to implement that in your life. And when bad things come, being able to stay grateful and focused on the positives, and just battling those negative thoughts. And when the anxiety comes, again, you're just floating with those symptoms, and hopefully you're seeing these things and these little pieces of the puzzle starting to come together and making you feel better. And I can't wait for our last 11 weeks and where I know that all of you can get to, and would love to hear about your life change. And don't forget, join our Facebook page, search that Freedom from Anxiety program, and find us and ask questions. In each of these videos, my email's there. If you ever have any questions, anything you need, please feel free to reach out anytime. Okay, we'll see y'all soon.